Good morning. This room sounds amazing. Like I was telling Amina, I'm a singer by trade. Like music was my first language. And it sounds amazing in here. Like I just want to break into song and like pull out my guitar and all that. And everybody's like, do it! So I'm going to tell you a story about my journey with water. So everybody can do this one. Just put your hands up like this. These are not gang signs. This represents, thank you, the golden triangle. I got this term from the chairman of Coca-Cola, one of our revered companies here in Atlanta, and that represents consumers, corporations, cities. And right in the middle of that sits this shared asset, this precious resource, water. And we're going to talk about why that's important and how everybody in this room can help create better water, a better world. But I'm going to tell you the story of aquagenuity, where water meets ingenuity, a water story. All right, how many of you guys remember seeing headlines about contaminated water, Flint, Michigan? Okay, this hit national and international headlines in 2016, but it actually started in 2014, when the local officials decided to switch their water source for a variety of reasons. And it wasn't just that decision. There are 2-3 other things that happened at the same time, a series of unfortunate events kind of all came together in a perfect storm, and I'm actually writing about some of how that went down in my book. But basically, when they switched water sources, people started noticing, the water's turning colors and might smell a little funny. But do you know, I'm amazed, now that I do this work, I get emails from people all over the world and they're telling me, hey, I saw my water was a little brown, but I just ignored it. I just let it run a little bit. And do you guys do that? Is that like a thing? Like, people are like, yeah. And I'm like, it's brown. Like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, you just let it run and then it's fine, right? Because we were raised to believe our water's fine. Like, I live in America, like we're good, right? So people noticed the water was a little weird. Some people started getting rashes or people's hair started falling out, but then it got a little worse. They started seeing kids having stunted growth, brain development issues, folks, fetal deaths. People started passing away from things like Legionnaire's disease. So these really upsetting, heart-wrenching stories start coming out of Flint. And what makes it worse is the medical fact that lead poisoning and the health effects of lead are actually irreversible. And there's no such thing as a safe amount of lead exposure, okay, according to the World Health Organization. But, everybody's seeing these stories and the tears, and it's bad. Oh my God, it's terrible for those folks in Flint. It's for whatever reason, I couldn't let it go. I'm like, what's going on? So I actually went back to Boston. I graduated from high school here, obviously. I went to Harvard. And I went back to Harvard to the School of Public Health looking for answers. Like, I just couldn't let it go. Like, how is this happening in the United States of America? One of my mentors actually is based in Boston. She also went to Harvard. I'm not gonna tell you who it is, but they're gazillionaires. And she also sits on the board of Matt Damon's water charity. And she was appointed by Paul Ryan to do this thing with the House of Representatives, so she knows some stuff. So I'm sitting in her living room one day and she goes, it's really great. I was telling Matt. And I'm like, yeah, Matt, Just telling Matt the other day, it's cool, all this work that we're doing with clean water overseas, but somebody needs to do something about the water here in the United States. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what does she know that I don't know about what's going on with the water in the United States? This is 2016. And so I came across this really disturbing fact. It was so disturbing that it has changed the course of my life and career. And I gave a TED Talk about it. And it is this fact that there are 3,000 locations, communities in the United States with more lead in their water than Flint, Michigan. 3,000? What does this even mean? And this is not like data that this is public record information. So why does no one know this? It's because we all think, what? Our water is fine. Nobody's asking the question, what's in my water? 3,000 locations. So everybody's shocked by that, of course. And then you have one of two reactions. You're going to say, well, how did we get to this? How is this happening? And you're going to say, is it my water? Wait, what about where I live? How many of you are thinking one or two of these things? Okay, so I'm gonna help you answer both those questions today. All right, so how did we get here? All the pipes, kind of in the Western world, we figured out how not to die instantly, right, when drinking water, because we have sanitation and we put in pipes, and this is what we figured it out. And that's how we kind of got to the notion, which is true, that we have the best water in the world. So in the 1920s and 30s, they dug all the pipes and the infrastructure that we know today. But what year is it, guys? 2019. So literally, no exaggeration, most of the infrastructure in this country is 100 years old. Okay, it's crumbling. It's received a D rating from the American Society of Civil Engineers. And actually, to fix it would cost about $1 trillion. And to put that in perspective, that is about 1/3 of the total annual budget for the United States government. So long story short, they're not gonna pay for that in the next 5 years. I can promise you 100% guarantee, you can bet your house on it, they're not going to fix all the pipes. So this is affecting everybody's water quality. It's slowly declining, but that's not the only factor, right? On June the 22nd, 1969, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. Now I'm speaking to a modern audience, and that doesn't compute for us. It's like, what do you mean? Okay, it's water. How is it burning? How toxic does your water have to be to burn? What does that even mean? It caught on fire. But in 1969, this is 28 days before Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon. And this was not the first time that this river caught on fire. It was not the second time. Matter of fact, dozens of times, this river in Ohio had caught on fire in the previous decades, and that is because most major rivers in all metropolitan areas at that time were so polluted, to see signs of life was considered rare, okay? This was just kind of normal. But this particular fire, they put it in a Time magazine article, and it started this national movement. So within a year, in 1970, Senator Nelson started Earth Day, which was designed to bring political media awareness to the fact that water quality and air quality is negatively impacting public health. And they also started the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that same year. Okay, so again, what year is it? It's 2019. Next year is the 50th anniversary of both the EPA and Earth Day. And guess what? Still today, there are 1.2 trillion gallons of industrial waste being released into our waterways every year. As a matter of fact, there are 80,000 chemicals that are legal, perfectly legal to use in industrial processes in this country, and most of them are not regulated by the EPA. One of those chemicals was made famous in the movie Erin Brockovich, which tells the story, water causing cancer in a California town. That same cancer-causing chemical, chromium-6, has been found in water systems across all 50 states. It's not regulated by the EPA. It's just what it is. So this starts to get a little disturbing. So the fact, and what I discovered on my journey in Boston, is that we're not even monitoring things that we actually already know are harmful, let alone the pharmaceuticals and all the other things that are in the water supply. So we got issues. Matter of fact, 71% of Americans actually have some form of contamination in their water, and most of us, again, we don't know it. We have no idea. So by the time we find out, it's usually a big crisis, there's headlines, there's billions of dollars in lost revenue. It's just a little too late, right? So to bring it on home for us, I'm sure most of us didn't see this article. Georgia actually had the 5th most violations of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Fun information, right? This is what I want to hear this morning, right? So, said all that to say there's a big gap between what the EPA is regulating for and known health standards. So how do we bridge this gap? It's being exacerbated by declining infrastructure. What do? Well, first of all, we have to get out of the mindset that, oh, our water's fine. We should start asking the question, which is on our poster this morning, what's in your water? Simple question, to start having a conversation and bringing awareness to this issue. But more importantly, because of the environment that we live in, because of just economic realities, we can't necessarily just depend on the government to help us figure it out or take care of it. There's a lot of other factors involved. And I truly believe that water is not a political issue, it's a human issue. So everybody deserves access to this data, and it's public record, but who's reading this? Who has time for this? And let's say you were to go try to find it. I want to know, even if this were not blurry, can you read this? Like, what does this mean? So unless you have a degree in environmental engineering or chemistry, you're not like really clear on what this means. What do I do? So I set out on a journey, thinking it would be a simple one, to aggregate data, water quality data, so that the average non-technical user can understand what's in your water. What does this mean for my health? And started aggregating data for all 50 states. And the first clue that I had that I was onto something was I got a fellowship from Singularity at NASA Research Park. And Singularity is an organization that was started by Peter Diamandis. He is the founder of the X Prize. And so I said, Global Impact Fellow, maybe we're onto something here. But while I'm in the middle of all this research, it got really personal for me. So my dad, he used to teach for NASA, or work for NASA years ago. He was a professor. He retired, moved to a new house, small town. And after 72 years, relative health, he was suddenly diagnosed with diabetes, kind of out of the blue. His lifestyle hadn't changed. His diet had not changed. In fact, only thing that had changed was his zip code. So I'm in the middle of this big research project, and I discovered that this obscure report linking arsenic in that local water supply to diabetes. Well, by this time, my dad's health had taken a turn for the worse. He's in another state. Like, I didn't have time to like fly in and figure out like, how do I test the water? Like, what do I do? And he actually passed away from kidney complications in the summer of 2017. So it led me to ask this question: how many of us are being exposed to things in our water, and we're not sure, we don't know it, and over long periods of time, what are the health effects of that? So it became my mission to create a database that anybody could access. So we pull from sources like the EPA, public utilities, municipalities. Again, this is not secret information, but it's information that nobody reads and nobody understands. So making it easy to access and easy to understand. And when we did that, Google called. My friend made the joke, he said, well, Google knows everything. They literally called, and there's like, hey, dog, we've been watching you, And they flew us up to Flint. These girls were actually in high school at the time. Last summer, they flew us up to Flint, and we spent the first entire day passing out water. They're tractor trailers full of water. Now, this is June of 2018. This is 4 years after this happened for them. And these folks still to this day do not have clean water or access to clean water. So some of those girls actually are interns now for me. They're moving to Atlanta for college next year, and they're interns for Aquagenuity. Turns out we're building the world's largest water database. Who knew? And it put us on the homepage, not the search results, the homepage of Google. My mom thought that was really cool. And my friend said, nobody's on the homepage of Google except like Martin Luther King. I was like, yep, and me, So we're out here, and that's pretty cool. That's another indication that we're doing something that's never been done before. So then some of these bigger companies started calling. Coca-Cola put us in the bridge community, which is cool, and it's designed to bridge the gap, so to speak, so that there's technology implementation with all these Fortune 100 companies. And so you think about, obviously, food and beverage, Samuel Adams and Coca-Cola, some of these guys obviously use our platform. But then you have oil and gas companies and insurance companies and consumer products companies, and actually 84% of corporations use water as a major asset in their business operations. Who knew? There are also about 500 cities that are water stressed right now. So by the time I'm figuring all this out, I said, wow, so what you're telling me is I'm building a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. That's what you're saying. And they're like, yep, because water. So Google sent me on a multi-city speaking tour, which was also fun times. So we went to LA, New York, DC, all around, just telling the story of Aquagenuity and how we're using technology to solve this grand global challenge of water. So all these folks are featuring us, and yay, right? All because we're using data to make it easy to answer the question, what's in your water? So typically, a tech startup, this is what you want. This is what you're looking for. So it's like, all right, we're out here, we're winning. The app is cool. It's really slick. It tells you what's in your water. Just put in your zip code. You can search real estate and restaurants by water quality. All these things are amazing and cool. It also tells you what's in the air. So we have air quality, pollen count. So you can basically kind of track your health and wellness journey using this application. It tells you water headlines, gives you Wellness 101, kind of helps you on a journey if you want to detox and things like that. So anybody who's trying to live better, do better, be better, our app can help with that. And we're also in the middle of this big trend. People are recognizing that water is, to the 21st century, what oil was to the 20th century. So the typical tech startup, we have thousands of folks on our waiting list already. So it's like, all right, here we go. We're going to launch, and we're going to scale, and we're going to sell in about 2 years. Woohoo! Right? But I'm at a crossroads. I found myself at a crossroads because remember the golden triangle. If we just sell this app, but we don't change the behaviors that got us to this problem in the first place, we're gonna run out of water, like literally, not an exaggeration. So it had to be more than just a personal mission for me or a message so I can sell the app. It became a movement because consumers actually have the power to move the needle in this equation. The 20th century is dead. So in the 20th century, all this data was kind of behind walls and siloed off, and nobody read it and nobody cared, and then there was a crisis, and then we ran to try to fix it, and people got sick in the middle. The 20th century is dead. In the 21st century, transparency is the new currency. So how do we move this needle? How do we change the behaviors of corporations and cities where water is concerned so that we get to better water, better world? First, they called us, some of the biggest institutions in the world, the next folks who called us United Nations. Hey, we want to make sure that folks know they have access to this data using the app, other platforms, activations. We need artists. We want to go city to city. We want to make sure that everybody's aware, going into the schools, educating folks. So that's a great opportunity for us. But also, we want to take care of communities who cannot afford these water solutions. People who can't afford to go get a whole house filtration system. We're going to adopt them too. What about in developing countries where they don't have the app or technology or ways to access this data? We want to help them too. So we have great partners that are helping us do that around the world. And we're on a mission to bring data to the people. So everybody in this room, you now have access to be able to answer the question, what's in your water? And if you follow us on all of our social media, you'll get the info, you'll be the first to know when the app comes out, which is great. But more importantly, tell everybody. This is not something that should be secret or kind of in the back, and then we find out when it's too late, right? If you share the information, and we are launching the app after working very hard to make partnerships with all the cities and folks so they know we're coming. So it'll be available on Earth Day. And we imagine a world where this is not a news story, where this is normal for everybody to know what's in your water. What does that mean for my health? What kind of filter do I need? What can I do to detoxify? How can I protect my health and that of my family? That's what we're here to do. And you guys are a part of history in the making. We have not made this public announcement yet, but as we're standing here today in Atlanta, Georgia, the home of the civil rights movement and all that fun stuff, right? I am a woman-led company on this almost the end of Women's History Month, right? We're doing big things, but more importantly, most of you probably didn't know that there is about less than 40 women of color, Black women, have ever raised more than $1 million for a tech startup from outside Capitol. And we have not announced it yet. I'm telling you first. You're looking at one of those 40. So history in the making.